the CIA and USAID and all these countries, and they have an ecosystem surrounding this. There is the media system. Most of the media is owned by the globalists. We know that. Then there is an awards industry. Most of these awards, even Nobel prizes, they are all compromised things. They are only designed for global. If they give to non-Western people, it is a secondary thing like humanities, peace prize, and that kind of stuff. They will retain it. Then there is the media, awards industry. They have human rights industry. Human rights is another industry. Have you seen any human rights industry talk about the Hindu atrocities against Hindus? But at the same time, they talk about anything that happens on the Muslims, they blow it up. So then there is the United Nations, IMF. United Nations has to be headed by US. IMF has to be headed by Europe. Then there all these things. This is a mafia. They go into countries, they go and take the resources, they will give the loans to the country and use the World Bank to give the loans. And the loans are given for what? To fund the Western industries to go in and build these roads and bridges, the projects. And then they will make them indebted. And after they are indebted, they will take their resources to build their own countries.
Welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Today I have with me Sri Satya Dosapati, and I'll explain to you his background in just a little bit, but let's just first start welcoming him. Satya, welcome to PGurus channel.
Welcome.
So,
glad to be here.
Viewers, Satya and I go back a few years now. We've done a lot of things together, a thoroughly enjoyable person to work with. And I can tell you one very, very important contribution, actually more than one of the more significant contributions. He was one of the first ones to call the bluff of Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, who was trying to pass herself off as a scion of the Mahatma Gandhi family by putting advertisements in United States newspapers. And he was the first one to give the real Sonia Gandhi. For that, he was richly rewarded by being sued by the Congress party in America for $100 million. They didn't leave him. They tied his wife and everybody else that they could put their hands on. But luckily, saner sense prevailed and that lawsuit was withdrawn. But Satya became a hero after that, but he didn't rest on his oars. He was just getting started. Then after that, what he did was, after the 2009 result, and somebody said that the election may have been rigged, that the EVMs may have been tampered, he took it upon himself to assemble a global team of electronic voting machine experts who all went to India, did some research there, figured out how those machines could be manipulated, had a press conference and showed that the EVMs were being manipulated. And this was a big eye-opener for the Indian public. By that time, the elections are already finished. Mrs. Gandhi had come back to power again. But one good thing did happen was that the election commissioner at that time, Mr. Qureshi, actually understood that this was an important thing that needed to be done. At the same time, Dr. Subramanian Swamy also was trying to move the courts to force the election commission to have a VVPAT. And that's how the EVM VVPATs came about. So Satya, the nation owes you a great debt of gratitude. Welcome to PGurus channel one more time.
Yeah. Why should the nation owe me? How can you owe to your mother? Nation is a mother. Our blood, everything that is in our body, our mind, it's all from the country. Tell me.
You know, one of the things that I have to share this with you viewers, one of the things that Satya has is he really gets concerned when something happens in India that disturbs him. And that comes out in the form of a passion, and he starts writing. And his latest article is a real eye-opener where he's taking the Delhi riots and then he's constructing the big picture of how various forces are at work to try and keep the pot boiling in India. That's the only way I can describe this. And that article is a bit long. It was first published in Op India, credit to them, and then PGurus also republished it with permission. And now we're just going to go through those things a little bit more of a in-depth detail to try and figure out why Satya is writing what he's writing. So Satya, let's start with the very first thing that you mentioned, which is that India needs to not just sit on its laurel that this is a law and order problem that happened in Delhi riots, but there is a much bigger, subterfuge at work. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, the see Delhi riots is I think everybody knows by now it is not a spontaneous movement. It
Yes.
is a movement that is a very well pre-planned, and there is a lot of discussion and debate. And I saw even just a recent video by Tejasvi Surya speaking about how we can even get a Mughal Raj back. He was speaking in Lok Sabha, I believe.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, Mughal
Yes.
Raj. And that is true. There is a problem, and political Islam is a problem not just in India, it is a problem worldwide. Especially Europe is getting a taste of it after thinking that all India is a law and order problem. And since 9/11, they understood it. And now, with all this migration from Middle East, they are seeing the taste of what radical political Islam is, and all the various countries have taken enormous number of steps. But one thing that is missing in India's debate is our problem here is not the political Islam only. Our problem is the global forces using the political Islam as a tool to contain, convert, and control India. And that, see, when you know a problem, at least you will work on it and address it. But if you don't even know the problem is happening, then you have a dangerous, bigger danger. And this has happened throughout the history. The global forces, how they contained, use the fault lines in any society to control and convert. It's nothing new that is happening, but in India that translates to using the political Islam as a tool to control and convert, and that is by the Western forces. And people are wondering why just a few, on December, when the CIA and all this thing was mentioned, a son of a friend of very close friend of mine from India called me up and asked. He's just finished his graduation master's program, and started to work here. And he said, "Uncle, I don't understand what is wrong with this. Why is the American media is so much against it? What has wrong? Why? What is that India has done wrong? What is it why is it every single media in the United States and Western BBC and so on are so vehemently against it?" And that is the point. That is the thing this article is. And I am not the first proponent of this. Actually, the Breaking India book by Raju Malhotra has done a tremendous job. And in fact, my work is building off of it. 10 years ago or so, he has written that very well researched book. And it's a lot of things have happened since then. And then there is other articles by Arvind Kumar, who is very thoroughly researched articles. And it is building off those articles and putting the picture based on their work and the Delhi riots. I am putting the pictures together so that our leadership and activists understand that don't miss the bigger force that is trying to use the political Islam to destroy India. That is a very important.
Now, you're also right. You start out by saying that development alone is not going to do it for India. India needs to look at all these other divisive forces that are at play. In fact, it plays right into the book that I wrote recently called Who Painted My Money White? Yes. And it is my contention that if the government found that there was funding coming in for the riots that recently concluded in Delhi, there was as much money available inside India itself for them to fund it. So I kind of doubt that, the 100+ crores that was mentioned is only the money that came in. I think it is much more, because many people who had normal daily livelihood gave up all that, okay, and just suddenly congregated, wife, husband, family, everybody. They were making good 2,500 to 3,000 rupees a day. And this went on for 3 months. So they have made money that they didn't have to work for. And even if they worked really hard, perhaps they would make 500 rupees a day as a low-level assistant or whatever. So now what has happened is this group has tasted money without doing any work.
Yes.
And the rioters have also messed up with their mindset, Because now they will start wondering, where else can I get this kind of easy money?
Easy, yes. But let me come back to the first thing you said.
Yeah.
Focusing development alone is not going to help. And see, the history is full of examples. I was telling the Krishna Devaraya Vijayanagar Empire
Yes. Yes.
was is a greatest civilization. People don't talk about it's one of the greatest civilizations India had thrown in the history for 350 years. And I was reading one day on the Wikipedia about this Vijayanagar civilization. People talk about it, and I started reading it. One point I noted is after the sultans of the neighboring countries came together, they were fighting with each other before, but after they came together and defeated, 350 years of civilization was destroyed in less than 6 months. That caught my eye. Oh my God, how can you, this such a great civilization, they completely day and night flattened it. Now, come to the history of India. For until the Mughals and the Muslim invaders came, India, even until 17th century, India was 25% of the GDP. India and China have the biggest majority of the GDP. Europe had only 20% of the GDP. But once the Mughals, especially the Aurangzeb, have weakened the country, and East India Company took over on a already weakened nation. And what has happened to the country? When I was reading in the Robert Clive, when he came into 1775, 1770 something, to Bengal, just one Bengal alone is many times richer than the UK.
Right.
West
Right.
Bengal alone.
Right.
And the amount, I was reading the book of Will Durant, book on Case for India. This man, he started writing this. Everybody knows this beautiful large volume, volume of the history of civilizations, multiple volume. And he was reading about all this. He's reading all this great, so much about this great civilization called India, and he wanted to see the glory of the temples and the Indian culture. And he came to 1930 to India, and he was totally shocked. He poured his heart, and I tell everybody, and I have given link to that article. It is
Yes.
freely
Yes.
available, and anybody can read first chapter where he poured his heart. You will never be the same person again. And he talks about the plunder and the condition of the India. He doesn't even say India. He says Hindus. The condition of the Hindus is so horrendous. And he said the only difference between the Louisiana slave and Hindu is the lynching. That the tax is, they were taxed to death, literally taxed to death. And that reminded me once Mahatma Gandhi was walking on in a thing with some Westerner, and he was asked, why are the people looking at you from there behind the door, from the windows? Why can't they come out? And Mahatma Gandhi ji answered, they have only one set of clothes.
One set of?
Clothes.
Oh, okay. Okay. I see.
That is the condition they have left. A country that is so rich, so so much civilization, to this millions of people died just in one Bengal alone. Too, and he pours his hearts. How many famines? How much death and destruction? And one thing he notes about in that chapter is, he says, wherever British is ruling the country, Hindu rights is the most common. Is a commonplace. Wherever the native rulers are ruling, there's hardly any riots. The point I'm making is, there is no problem of political Islam, or we should underestimate or lose our sight on the political Islam. What I'm saying is, political Islam is being used very effectively by the Western global forces we will get to destroy India. And they've done this in, if you go into Rwanda, how they set up the Houthi tribes, one tribe against another. They look at the fault lines. If you go back in history in Aztecs, if you go back, how each civilization was destroyed by looking at the fault lines of the civilization. And we will come to who are these Western global forces that are trying to do it. But in India, it translates to using the political Islam as a tool to control, convert, and contain India. So that is why I'm saying Indian government and Narendra Modi, and I see people, we will do the development and we will solve the problem. No, In fact, most of the people who are doing Islamic thing are not poor people. They're really educated people. You have seen in Europe and other countries, but they are being used by the tool as a tool, which we should not lose sight of, and we will come to that.
There's something very strange, isn't it? The whole of the world, except India, the Christians are fighting Christianity is fighting Islam, whereas inside India they're together, and there seems to be like a unity of purpose, because together they think that they have the numbers, and if they can convert enough of the Dalits, then they'll have a numerical superiority over the Hindus, and that bloc, in their opinion, votes as a single bloc, and therefore they can then come to power. That seems to be their math, and they have been steadily working towards that. I'll give you an example. You haven't written this in your article, but you can build on this. Is today, unofficially, Kerala has 30% Muslim population, 30. And it's about 15% Christian and about 55% Hindu. But you look at the new births, 100 childbirths, out of the 100 children that are born today, 42 are Muslim, 44 are Hindu. So Christians are falling away. So
well, the Lebanese type situation.
Yes, this is exactly like Lebanon, exactly. So there are countries who are addressing this political Islam rather effectively, including our neighbor Sri Lanka. But India seems to be treating these Delhi riots as a law and order problem, and they are going after people and saying that, look, you did this, you did this, you did this, you have to pay so much fine, you have to go to jail if you have to, and so on and so forth. But there is a deeper nexus at work. If you look at places like Tamil Nadu, they don't want any new industry to come up. And they have shut down even working, functioning industries. And in Andhra, you're having subterfuge. You're having people who sound Hindu, but they are actually doing things that are not Hindu. So you have all these kinds of oddball situations, and India needs to look at each state. It has a separate set of problems, isn't it?
Yes. So I will come to these three forces that are working in the country. There's what is a Western mafia, I will call, is a working for global dominance. There are three forces that are working in the Western global dominance. There is the Western business establishment. Western business establishment means the pharmaceutical, the weapons, the finance industry, and that is controlled by the globalists as well as globalist Jews and the Christians. That is one area. Then there is the Christian missionary agenda. There are two things. These are the two forces that control the West, especially United States. The missionary missionary forces as well as the Western establishment has big control of who is going to be the president of the country. Now, the third force is the Western agencies, CIA, USAID. They exist to support these forces, right? Now, they support mainly for the Western establishment, but missionaries is a tool also. Missionaries and Western establishment, they work hand in hand. One is Western establishment is looking for the dominance economically, plundering the resources. I mean, if you look at the books like Confessions of an Economic Hitman, they will say how they go into countries, how they target. This is written by a guy who has lived that life, and apparently they tried to stop publishing this book for 20 years, and it talks a lot about it. Then there is another video, The Thrive. They have done a wonderful job. There is a free YouTube video, and they have explained these things. Now the business establishment uses the missionaries, and the missionaries use the business establishment. So what does the missionaries want? They want the souls. They want to harvest those. What does the business establishment want? They want the global dominance. They want to plunder the resources and retain the dominance of their relation. Now, the CIA and USAID and all these countries, and they have an ecosystem surrounding this. There is the media system. Most of the media is owned by the globalists. We know that. Then there is an awards industry. Most of these awards, even Nobel Prizes, they are all compromised things. They are only designed for global. If they give to non-Western people, it is a secondary thing like humanities, peace prize, and that kind of stuff. They will retain it. Then there is the media awards industry. They have human rights industry. Human rights is another industry. Have you seen any human rights industry talk about a Hindu atrocities against Hindus? But at the same time, they talk about anything that happens on the Muslims, they blow it up. So then there is the United Nations, IMF. United Nations has to be headed by a US. IMF has to be headed by Europe. Then there all these things. This is a mafia. They go into countries. They go and take the resources. They will give the loans to that country and use the World Bank to give the loans. And the loans are given for what? To fund the Western industries to go in and build these roads and bridges, the projects. And then they will make them indebted. And after they are indebted, they will take their resources to build their own countries. And then in meanwhile, missionaries will jump into the bandwagon and they will start providing the converting the harvesting the souls. So there is a beautiful symbiotic relationship if this goes on, and most of the Western political leaders, whether it's a Democrat and Republican, only people like Trump fell through the cracks, and that is why there is a vicious campaign against him. But most of the Western politicians are owned by the Western establishment. In fact,
yes, vested interest. That's right.
No, it's a very powerful vested interest. They whether it is a farmer. I mean, a lot of these guys. I mean, what is the super PAC? You can put unlimited amount of money. A corporate can be like a citizen can put unlimited amount of money in super PACs. They can make and break. And what is the media? The media is held by them. This is like they call corporate media. But it is the media that they use all this power to do. Now, what is by putting how does this agenda translate into India? In India, they want, when right now the situation is they are afraid of China. China understood the game and they have upped the ante and they have become the superpower, and it's a totalitarian state. Now, in India, what they want is they are looking for India to be a counterweight to China on one hand. At the same time, they know that this country is India by nature, if it is allowed, it will become very prosperous. They don't want India to be a powerful nation. That is the Western global. But they want India to use the labor technical pool. They want the technical labor, technical coolies to build their industries. But they don't want India to build Indian industry to be a challenge to them. Now, what do the missionaries want? Missionaries don't want India to be very rich because it costs money. They have to it costs money to. It's like a business thing. The sales, like how many you sold, you harvest. Now, the missionaries provide the infrastructure. Like for example, Arvind talked about when US wants to stop the Kodakunam plant in Tamil Nadu. What did they reach out to?
Yes,
they reached out to the churches.
Yes.
And we are using the Russian technology. That is a great example of how they go about it.
Right.
But the bigger agenda in India is they want to use Dalits, Muslims, Christians as one group to capture the power in India and create such a negative image about India and India and Hinduism and Hindu. And once they get upper hand in India, they want to bring anti-superstition law to make every Hindu festival is so pagan. Like that's what they did in the Europe first, and then in South America and all this thing. Now they are targeting how the missionaries are doing the job for them. Missionaries are going and targeting the Hindus. There are many ways they are targeting. They target the Hindu saints. Like they will assassinate if necessary. Swami Lakshmananda in Orissa was assassinated. They did an attempt on Sri Ravi Shankar. They will arrest them. Sonia Gandhi has been considered as a Constantinople. They have arrested Simananda because he's doing some work in the tribal area, and they tortured him as if he is a terrorist. Now, then they arrested Jayendra Saraswati. And
yes.
This is very interesting. I want to tell people, they want to show that power of their god against Hindu god. They arrested Jayendra Saraswati on the Diwali day. They assassinated Swami Lakshmananda on a Krishna Janmashtami day. So you can see the same pagan things they have done. We are considered pagans. In fact, even the temple stampedes were orchestrated. Now, this human rights industry, and every time there is anything that happens to Muslims, they will raise up to show why. Why are there so much Muslim love they are showing to in India? That is because to instigate the Muslims. That is what the British did, to show the Muslims you are being destroyed, you are being destroyed. Hindus, and so in one way they are disarming the Hindus to take action. On the other hand, they're instigating the Muslims, and this is the way to weaken the society that will pave the for the conversion and to get power in India. That is that this agenda is very well planned, and they have been doing. They call it 1040 latitude, where India comes in, and that is what they want to do in India.
So
now I want to come to the Muslim law we are talking about.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Muslim law. You see, there is in the West, there is so much Muslim love and all this. Now, the Muslim love in India is also not just to conquer India and to weaken India and to convert India. The Muslim love in India is also to show Muslim countries their love for Muslims, while masking the colossal destruction they are doing in the Middle East. They have pretty much destroyed the Syria. And you know the weapons of mass destruction for Iraq, is there really weapons of mass destruction? They want the oil money, oil wealth. They want to grab the oil wealth. Now, when what's her name, Madeleine Albright was asked, were the sanctions against Iraq that killed 250,000 and so children worth it to do such sanctions? Again, what? Against the deceptive weapons of mass destruction. First of all, there is no such weapons. They use this propaganda. They use United Nations and all this. Now they killed 250,000 kids, and I was asked, is it worth it? And she said, it is worth it. And how many people, how many Muslims were killed in Iraq? 500,000 Muslims were killed in Iraq. And there is also this, some of this Western establishment consists of globalist Jews like Soros and all these globalist Jews. They want to mask the activities going on in Middle East to protect Israel. I don't know what their agenda is. They want to protect the destruction of Israel in Syria. And the same media, the same Western global media, they project as if their love for Muslims and masking the destruction, the systematic destruction of the Middle East and the Muslims they are doing in that Middle East. So there's a multiple agenda going on. On one side, they are masking the destruction. On the other side, they want to weaken our society and Hindu society so that they can control, conquer, and convert India. The other things I want to say is the steps. What are the steps India needs to take to address this thing? I mean, it's important that we address the political Islam, but we cannot lose sight of the Western design on India, using the Islam and Muslims as a way. I mean, everybody was surprised. Why would United Nations, or the chairman, president, whatever, he went into Supreme Court against CAA?
Yes,
I mean, can you
UNHRC. Yeah, it was not UNHRC.
United Nations
the
organization.
President of UNHRC, right.
And what is this? First of all, Aravind has written an article in Sunday Guardian, I think, where the United Nations refugee policy is almost exactly. I mean, even in United States, Frank Lautenberg Amendment is almost alike. Like they are persecuted Jewish people from Russia, or persecuted Jews, Baha'i people are from Iran. They didn't say persecuted Iranian Muslims to be here. It is almost exactly alike what they do. And the same, the enormous persecution of the Hindus and Sikhs in Islamic countries, they don't want to talk about. So we have to understand the design. This is what they have done during the imperialistic British time and other times. And we have to understand this time, and we have to put things in place today on what steps we need to take, and we can talk about that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Satya. And this has been a most interesting discussion. This is clearly an in-depth treatment of the topic, and we'll be back with part two in a short while. Thank you very much, Satya.